Well, welcome Revive Church, and welcome all of my first-time guests. We hope that you feel at home and that somebody greeted you when you came in the door and made you feel special, because you are, and we're glad that you're here. For those of you who are watching online, for maybe the first time, I am not the pastor, so if you want to hear him, you need to check back in next week. But don't log off and don't walk out, because I'm going to entertain you today with the scriptures. For any of you who know who I am, my name is Shay Caffey, and I love probably more than just about anything to study and teach the Word of God. So I was so excited when Pastor Shannon asked me to teach today, and I say teach because I'm more of a teacher than a preacher. And today we are going to give you a lot of history of the Bible. Now, normally, if you've been in my class or if you follow my YouTube channel, you know how I teach. It's a lot of Greek and a lot of Hebrew. I'm not going to do a lot of that today. You'll get a little bit towards the end. But today we are going to do story time. Everybody likes story time with Shay Shay. And so what I'm going to do is take you through a story that a lot of you guys are familiar with, and hopefully you can apply something to your life and that you will remember this teaching forever. Because as a teacher, after class, I usually ask my students, did you learn anything today? And we always want to see heads nodding, yes, I learned something new. So hopefully today you will learn something new, because I've entitled this teaching, The Blame Game. And we're all familiar with this game, some more than others. Some of you like to play it a lot. Some of you are recipients of this game. So I want to tell a funny story. I'll start with a funny story about somebody that shall remain nameless that probably won't watch this. And they're experts at the blame game. I mean, it's almost comical. And so my husband and I and our two daughters were visiting for a weekend and to some people's house. And I was in my pajamas. The kids were in their jammies. We were just watching TV Saturday morning, just kind of, what do? You're in somebody else's house, so you just make yourself at home, right? When said person walked into the doorway of the living room in a huff and proceeded to inform all of us that it was all Shay's fault. And so knowing this person's skill in the blame game, I knew I was going to be outmatched. So I said, what did I do? And they informed me that it's my fault that their pants are wrinkly because I didn't tell them that the buzzer dinged on the dryer. And I thought to myself, first of all, didn't know there was clothes in the dryer, which is not even close to where I'm sitting. Second of all, if you know my hearing, I would be the last person you would put in charge of telling you when a buzzer dinged across the house. Third, I didn't know it was my job. And so, it's kind of sarcastically, because that's how I roll sometimes, I said, I'm so sorry. I didn't know I was the buzzer police. And they stormed off in a tiff. You just can't argue sometimes with people that are really good at that game. So my question to you is, are you thinking right now in your head of a person who is an expert at that game? Or are you the one that gets accused of being the expert at that game? So as we go through this story time today, hopefully you will find yourself very aware of when you do it in the future. I'm going to start by recapping 2020. Now, 2020 started with the COVID pandemic. I was lucky enough to get it in February before they tested for it. A lot of people got it in November, December, January, and we didn't know what we had. Now we know what we had. But there was no diagnosis for it, no medicines for it. They just thought we had flu B. And then I was lucky enough to get it again after Christmas 10 months later. So I am a superhero because I have the antibodies right now, and they're asking for my plasma. So I'm pretty much immune. And that's why I'm like, hugs from all. But when it started, people were panicked because we didn't know what it was. And so the churches were like in a dilemma. The pastors were like all having to make a very big decision on behalf of their congregations, some of them larger than others. And what we found is that the poor pastors that decided to close their churches down were blamed for being faithless, and people left their church. The pastors who decided to try to stay open were blamed for spreading the pandemic and were called insensitive, and people left the church. The people who decided to stay home and become hermits were blamed for being overdramatic, and the people that decided to mask up and go out and still try to do life were blamed for being careless and stupid. It's like, you're out there and you don't even know what this is. And then the election came, and our country went crazy. They went wild. I mean, people are like, I am going to burn down this city and smash windows because somebody did something that triggered me. They're blaming. Nobody was taking responsibility this year for the damage that they were doing because they were blaming somebody or something else for their behavior. And this kind of, behavior has gone on since the dawn of time. And so I'm going to start story time without any further delay. We're going to start in Genesis 3. 12 through 13, New American Standard. And the man said, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me from the tree and I ate. And then the Lord God said to the woman, what is this that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. Blaming. Passing the buck. Both of them did it because neither one wanted to take responsibility for the choice that they made. We are told in the Bible to endure trials, to endure temptations, to endure struggles, to reach the end result of our faith, which is the salvation of our souls. But many times we will hit an obstacle. It may be a person, it may be a group of people, it may be it may be a situation. Something that derails us, where we decide we're going to pull back from the ministry that we know God has called us to. We're going to pull back from the Christians that are hypocrites, that have betrayed us. We're going to pull back. And when somebody asks, why aren't you doing that anymore? Why aren't you doing this ministry anymore? Why aren't you teaching anymore? Why aren't you, whatever? We reach into our bag of excuses to blame somebody or something for the decision that we made to tap out of the race, to stop fighting the good fight of faith. Anybody been there? Anybody in ministry been there? Where you feel like the day I said yes to God and yes to the ministry, there was a spiritual target put on my back. And I just became firing practice for the enemy. I mean, he uses everything. He will use anything he can use to derail you, whether it be friends, family, children, your job, your boss, your pastor, friends at church, finances, health. He doesn't care. Whatever he can do to distract you and get you from fighting the good fight of faith, he is going to come at you with everything you have. And we have to know that. We have to be ready for that. So my question to you is, who or what are you blaming for where you are right now? Is there somebody or something that has derailed you from continuing to pursue what you once pursued and you know God wants you to pursue it again? And if there is, through this teaching, I hope that you come to grips with the fact that you're not going to let that derail you anymore. You're going to get back in the race, because blaming people and then not reaching your destiny is just, it's really going to be a shame for you. You know, Moses had a destiny. All Moses had to do is go back into Egypt from Midian, where he was, go back over the Red Sea, across the Sinai Peninsula, back into Egypt, talk to Pharaoh, and get Pharaoh to let millions of Hebrew people go. These people have been captives there for over 400 years. But then all you have to do after you get Pharaoh on board is lead them on foot across the way of the wilderness, again, which is that kind of like that transatlantic road of trade that goes across the Sinai Peninsula. Just go ahead and take them out of Egypt, and then you're going to take them into this place called the Promised Land. This Promised Land is going to be amazing. And let me tell you a little bit about it. So we're going to go into Leviticus 20, verse 24, New American Standard Bible. Hence I have said to you, you are to possess their land, and I myself will give it to you to possess it, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God who has separated you from the peoples Exodus 23:23, New King James. For my angel will go before you and bring you into the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. Now, cut them off means I will destroy them. So God's going to send an angel ahead of the Hebrew people, and he's going to literally wipe out the ites. So when they go into the promised land, they can possess it more easily. So as Moses is leading the Hebrew people out across the way of the wilderness, Pharaoh changes his mind, starts chasing him with all of his armies. So Moses, instead of going across the top of the Red Sea, he cuts short and comes down on the west side of the Red Sea, and now he's trapped. Now, who do you think the people are going to blame for taking them over here and then putting them in a position where they're all going to be slaughtered? They're going to blame Moses, right? So that is found in Exodus 14:11 and 12. And they said to Moses, why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than a corpse in the wilderness. Now, we all know God performed the miracle, split the Red Sea. Hebrew people got across, and as soon as Pharaoh and his armies got into the seabed, he closed it up like a vice grip, and voila, they all drowned. But once they got across the Red Sea, they hit one obstacle after another. They had no water, and I'm going to pronounce some things in Hebrew pronunciation, so just bear with me if I say something like that's not how it's pronounced. They had no water in Shur. They had bitter water in Marah. They had no food or water in the desert of Sin. They had no water in Rephidim. And this is the account of the no water in Rephidim. Listen to these people and how angry they are, blaming Moses. Exodus 17:3-7, New American Standard. But the people thirsted there for water, and they grumbled against Moses and said, why now have you brought us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? So Moses cried out to the Lord and said, what shall I do to this people? A little more and they're going to stone me. And then the Lord said to Moses, pass before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand your staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock of Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, strike it, and water will come out of it that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He named the place Massah or Meribah because of the quarrel of the sons of Israel, and because they tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? So these people who had spent, up until this point, many days being miraculously saved over and over and over by God, every time they came upon an obstacle, doubted him. They didn't think he was going to get them through to their promised land. And how many of us battle with that roller coaster of emotions? When we are in the midst of a trial, our faith will waver. And then we get to the end of the trial, and we look back, and hindsight's 20/20. We're like, oh, I see God's hand all through that. I see exactly why he made me go through this to get to here. But in the midst of it, and that's what these people were doing, in the midst of the trial, they lost their faith a couple of times. If they just could have seen the end from the beginning, just like us. If we could just see the end from the beginning, we would have a lot more grace when we go through things. But they continued to blame Moses over and over and over. They grumbled about the Amalekites attacking them. No water, bitter water, no food or water. When Moses went up onto Sinai for 40 days, twice, they blamed him for everything. This is their account when they got into the desert of Sin. Numbers 20:3-5, New American Standard. The people thus contended with Moses and spoke, saying, if only we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord. Why then have you brought this Lord's assembly into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die here? Why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us into this wretched place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, nor is there any water to drink. They weren't at their destination yet, and neither are you. But just like kids in the back seat of the car going to Six Flags, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? All we want is the destination. We don't want to have to work for it or suffer for it. We just want to be there. And that's what these people were battling. They weren't at their destination. Numbers 20:6-8. And then Moses and Aaron came in from the presence of the assembly to the doorway of the tent of meeting, and they fell on their faces. And then the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the rod, and you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation, and speak to the rock before their eyes, that it may yield its water. You shall thus bring forth water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their beasts drink. At this point in the story, Moses is done. He's exhausted with these people, and he loses his cool. Numbers 20:9-12. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, just as he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock. And he said to them, listen now, you rebels. Shall we bring forth water for you out of this rock? And then Moses lifted up his hand, and he struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came forth abundantly, and the congregation and their beasts drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you have not believed me, to treat me as holy in the sight of the sons of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. After all Moses has been through to get these people where they are, because he didn't obey the Lord exactly. Now he doesn't get to go into the promised land, but worse yet, he has to still take them into the promised land. Reminds me of a quick story. So for you parents who tell your children what to do, and then they do it, but they do it begrudgingly, or they don't do it quite like you said. When my little brother and I used to play backgammon, and we'd play for pennies. So when you roll that dice at the end, you know, the little dice told you how many pennies. Okay, so I got him up to $70. He's in 4th grade. He doesn't have $70, and Mom doesn't know we're gambling. So I decided that he could just give me something worth $70, which the only thing he had that I wanted was his winter coat. Well, we lived in Ohio, and it was winter. So he tattled to me, and Mom made me give him back the winter coat. Well, that wasn't the deal. The deal was you were going to play for pennies. But now, because you're spoiled and you get everything you want, Mom is making me give back the coat. So I did what she said. I gave it to him a little aggressively, and he slammed over dramatically back into the door of the closet, crumbled to the floor, and began to wail. So I get sent to my room. I did what she said. I gave him back his coat. I just didn't do it like she told me to. Thus we have Moses is the Shay, and the people are the little brother, who just drive him crazy, and they keep getting everything they want, and every time they don't get what they want, they grumble, and Moses has to give them what they want. So he whacks the rock, played the first game of whack-a-hole. He wasn't supposed to. He was supposed to speak to the rock, but now because he didn't do it quite right, he doesn't get to go into the promised land. How many of us would scream, that's not fair? That's not fair. That's not fair. Who do you think Moses should have blamed? I know if it were me, I would blame the people. These people drove me crazy. They made me do it. The people would then turn around and blame Moses for dragging them out of Egypt. Why did you drag us here? If you'd just left us alone, we wouldn't have driven you crazy. The real people to blame, though, are the spies. Because when he whacked the rock, he was in the desert of Sin. Before he was in the desert of Sin, they were located in the wilderness of Paran. This is where they deployed the 12 spies to go up into the land of Canaan, which was their promised land, to check it out. So these 12 spies go up, come back 40 days later. They're supposed to bring back a report of milk and honey and fruit that's the size of basketballs. But this is what they come back and tell the people. Numbers 13:27-30, New American Standard. Thus they told him and said, we went into the land where you sent us, and it certainly does flow with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who live in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. Amalek is living in the land of the Negev, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites are living in the hill country, and the Canaanites are living by the sea and by the side of the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, we should by all means go up and take possession of it, for we will surely overcome it. Even though God had already told him, I'm going to kill the ites. Just go in. They brought back such a negative report that they instilled fear in the people. Continuing on, Numbers 13, 31 through 33. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are too strong for us. So they gave out to the sons of Israel a bad report of the land, which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone in spying it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. There we also saw the Nephilim. Dun, dun, dun. And we became like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. So the land of Canaan, which is promised to them, is filled with giants, but is also filled with Nephilim, which are the pre-flood giants from Genesis 6:4, if you want to look that up. And when these people, these spies, saw these giant people, they were scared to death to go up against them. Numbers 14, 1 through 12, New American Standard. And then all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, would that we had died in the land of Egypt. Listen to this. Or would that we had died in this wilderness. Before they're complaining. You're going to bring us out here and make us die in the wilderness. Now they're like, I wish that we would die in the wilderness, because I don't want to go up against those giants. Here's what they thought would happen to them. Verse 3. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become plunder. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? And so they said to one another, let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt. And then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces in the presence of all of the assembly of the congregation of the sons of Israel. Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, of those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. And if the Lord is pleased with us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they will be our prey. Their protection has been removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. Oh, but all the congregation said, stone them with stones. And then the glory of the Lord appeared in the tent of meeting to all the sons of Israel. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will this people spurn me? And how long will they not believe in me, despite all the signs which I have performed in their midst? I will smite them with pestilence, and I will dispossess them, and I will make you into a nation greater and mightier than they. The real blame is with the spies, those 10 spies that came back. And now God is so angry, he's fixing to wipe the Hebrew people off the map. So Moses stands in the gap. Numbers 14, 15 through 32, New American Standard. Now, if you slay this people as one man, in other words, Moses is like, hey, if you slay us all at one time, then the nations who have heard of your fame will say, well, because the Lord couldn't bring this people into the land which he promised them by oath, therefore he slaughtered them in the wilderness. But now I pray, let the power of the Lord be great, just as you have declared. The Lord is slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, forgiving iniquity and transgressions. But he will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and the fourth generations. Pardon, I pray, the iniquity of this people, according to the greatness of your loving kindness, just as you also have forgiven this people from Egypt, even until now. So the Lord said, I have pardoned them according to your word. But indeed, as I live, all the earth will be filled with the glory of the Lord. And surely all the men who have seen my glory and my signs, which I have performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, yet have put me to the test these 10 times and have not listened to my voice, shall by no means see the land which I swore to their fathers, nor shall any of those who spurned me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has had a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land which he entered, and his descendants shall take possession of it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites, they live in the valleys, so turn tomorrow and set out to the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, How long shall I bear with this evil congregation who are grumbling against me? I have heard the complaints of the sons of Israel, which they are making against me. Say to them, as I live, says the Lord, just as you have spoken in my hearing. He's going to bring their words back to them. As you have spoken in my hearing, so I will surely do to you. Your corpses will fall in this wilderness, even all of your numbered men, according to your complete number, from 20 years old and upward, who have grumbled against me. Surely you shall not come into the land in which I swore to settle you, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. Your children, however, whom you said would become prey, I'm going to bring them in, and they will know the land which you have rejected. But as for you, your corpses will fall in the wilderness. So everybody under 20, fighting-aged men, are 20 and up. So everybody under 20 still gets to go in. Everybody 20 and older is going to die in the wilderness. Moses is still in at this point. Joshua, Caleb, Moses, and Aaron are still in at this point in the wilderness of Paran. So Moses pled for the innocent kids. He's like, why should the kids pay for what their parents did? And so because he pleads with God for that, God makes a deal with Moses for the children. And this is his deal, Numbers 14, 33 through 39, New American Standard. Your sons, under 20, shall be shepherds for 40 years in the wilderness, and they will suffer for your unfaithfulness, the unfaithfulness of the over 20s, until your corpses lie in the wilderness. According to the number of days which you spied out the land, 40 days. For every day you shall bear your guilt a year, even 40 years, and you will know my opposition. I, the Lord, have spoken, and surely this I will do to all this evil congregation who are gathered together against me. In this wilderness they shall be destroyed, and there they will die. As for the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, and who returned and made all the congregation grumble against him by bringing out a bad report concerning the land, even those men who brought out the very bad report of the land died by a plague. 10 of them did. And they died right then. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh remained alive out of these men who went out to spy out the land. When Moses spoke these words to all the sons of Israel, the people mourned greatly. That is why they are so rebellious. The people over 20 knew their fates were sealed. They're like, we're going to die out here now. And our kids are going to get to go in the promised land. We don't get to go. So when they left the wilderness of Paran, knowing their fates were sealed, and went into the desert of Sin, and yet again there is no more water, of course they are going to grumble. And now Moses is frustrated because he's just lost half of his people aren't going to get to go in. And now they're grumbling again. And so when Moses is like, Lord, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, speak to the rock. Give the little brother what he wants. Moses is like, oh, I'm going to give it to him, all right. And he hits the rock twice and calls them rebels. He's frustrated. He's doing all of this, and he's frustrated. And now because he hit the rock, instead of speaking to it, now he doesn't get to go in either. If those spies hadn't come back with a bad report, those people wouldn't have been instilled with fear, which caused them to doubt God. God wouldn't have condemned them to die in the desert, which frustrated these people so bad they became so rebellious that Moses wouldn't have whacked the rock. It's the spies' fault that all of this happened. Or is it? Spies aren't going to take the blame for that. It's not our fault. There were giants in the land. It's the giants' fault. We were supposed to come back with a good report, but had they not been there, there's Nephilim there. And these men are of great size, and they devour the inhabitants. So, of course, it's the giants' fault. Or is it? See, the giants are going to say, oh, nay, nay. You see, we were born here. This is our land. Why is that wrong? Unless being born is a crime, and if being born is a crime, then blame the person in charge of birthing us. And so in my study of all the ites, I found, these ites were everywhere. We read a list of all of them. The tribes, as I researched each and every one of them, all came back to one person, and his name was Canaan. Thus, the land of Canaan, which is the promised land, which we now know as modern-day Israel. Canaan is the father of all of the giants. In 1 Chronicles 1, 13 and 16, New American Standard, it says, Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn. Heth and the Jebusites and the Amorites and the Girgashites and the Hivites and the Archites and the Sinites and the Arvadites and the Zemarites and the Hamathites. Lots of ites. And so as I look up, I study a lot out of the Hebrew, Gesenius Hebrew Chaldee Lexicon of the Old Testament, blueletterbible.org. So anything I teach you today, and I refer to a lexicon, which is a Bible dictionary, you can look at my work. I plagiarize. Hittites, descendants of Heth, the second son of Canaan. Jebusites, descendants of, it looks like Jebus, the third son of Canaan. The Hivites, the sixth generation of descendants of Canaan. The Girgashites, descendants of Canaan. The Sinites, the tribe of the Canaanites, descended from Canaan. The Arvadites, the descendants of Arvad, the son of Canaan. The Zemarites, one of the Hamite tribes, descended from Canaan. The Hamathites, one of the families, descended from Canaan. And then those Nephilim, they were called the sons of Anak. I looked up Anak, progenitor of a family or tribe of the giant people in Canaan. So the ites came from one guy, Canaan. And apparently that might be how the Nephilim got back in the picture. I'm not going to be dogmatic about that. So really, Moses should blame Canaan, because if he hadn't, and his woman, hadn't have birthed a bunch of giants, they wouldn't have been in the land when the spies went up there. The spies wouldn't have brought back a bad report. The people wouldn't have been filled with fear and upset God. God wouldn't condemn them to die in the wilderness, thus making them rebellious. And then they ticked Moses off to the point where he waxed a rock. So this is literally all Canaan's fault. Or was it? Do you know Canaan was cursed? He had a curse put on him. Word curses are powerful. And if his grandfather hadn't cursed him, there is a big chance that none of this would have happened. Giants never would have been born. And his grandfather's name was Noah. And we all know who Noah is. So Moses penned the books of the Bible, the first 5. So he knows that Noah's to blame. But why would Noah curse his grandson? There's only 8 people that got off of the ark. Genesis 9:18. Now the sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. Just kind of threw that in there. He doesn't list any of the other kids' sons. And Ham had 4. He just lists 1. The reason is because Canaan's going to become the father of the giants, and we need to understand why and how that happened. Genesis 9:19 through 20, New American Standard. These 3 were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. And then Noah began farming and planted a vineyard. Noah never had kids again after he got off of the ark. So apparently, and according to the Bible, these 3 boys repopulated the earth. The fact that Canaan is talked about, and he's Ham's 4th son, lets us know that this story I'm about to tell you happens years after they got off the ark, not the week after they got off the ark. Noah might have planted the vineyards right away, but this story that I'm going to tell you is years down the road. Genesis 9:21 through 25, New American Standard. He, Noah, drank of the wine and became drunk and uncovered himself in his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, throws that in there again, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both of their shoulders and walked backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. When Noah, hold on a second. But when Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and walked backwards, covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were turned away so that they did not see the nakedness of their father. When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son Ham had done to him. So he cursed Canaan. A servant of servants he shall be to his brothers. Now, when growing up, when I heard this story, I was taught it at face value. That Ham walked into the tent, saw Dad drunk, sprawled out, no clothes, maybe snickered, went out, told his brothers out of respect, carried a garment backwards, covered up Dad. And when Noah woke up, he realized what Ham had done. Somebody must have told him because he was out, cold. He cursed Canaan. Now, I always thought he cursed the land of Canaan because I didn't understand that there was a man named Canaan. I just thought, that's so weird. If my daughter did something to really upset me, I wouldn't curse Arden, my granddaughter. Probably wouldn't curse Chelsea either. But I'm just saying, Ham was the perpetrator. So why, when Noah woke up and he realized what his youngest son Ham had done, did he not curse Ham? But instead he curses his grandson. So when I teach, if you've ever been in my Bible studies, you know, I look up lots of things, especially when things are like, something's not right with this. I look everything up in these lexicons, which are Hebrew and Greek dictionaries, and they spell out a lot so that I don't have to guess anymore. So Moses, like I said, he wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. And many scholars believe that he wrote it in the 40 years between leaving Egypt and going into the Promised Land. This story happened many, many, many years before, so he knows the name of all of the players when he writes this story. In his writings, he uses idioms or euphemisms. For those literature majors, you know what those words mean. For those of us who... It's a literary tool, which means it's a polite way of saying something that might otherwise sound crass. For instance, when Adam and Eve got together, he didn't say they had intercourse. He said Adam knew Eve. When Lot was in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and they were depraved, the Lord sent 2 angels to Lot to warn him to get out. Lot takes these 2 men, angels, into his house to protect them from the depraved townfolk. They saw the guys, so they're beating on Lot's door. This is what happens. Catch the idiom. Genesis 19:5, King James Version. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out to us that we may know them. They weren't asking to have tea and crumpets, guys. An idiom, a polite way of saying something that might otherwise sound crass. Moses does it all the time. So Lot and his family, his wife and his 2 daughters, the son-in-laws don't want to come. They flee Sodom and Gomorrah, and you know the story. The angel told them not to look back. Fire and brimstone is coming down on these 2 cities, just burning it. The wife looks back, turns into a pillar of salt. The 2 daughters and Lot go into a city called Zoar for just a little while. Then they end up in a mountain, hiding in a cave, watching the plains down by the Dead Sea just burn up. Now, the 2 daughters think that they are the only 3 humans alive on the planet. So they devise a plan, catch the very many idioms in this story. Genesis 19:31 through 33, King James Version. And the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come into us after the manner of all of the earth. Come, let us make our father drink, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Did you catch them all? You don't lay down in the bed next to somebody to preserve their seed. Idioms, a polite way of saying something that actually sounds very disgusting. So, many scholars believe that Moses uses an idiom in the story of Ham and Noah. They believed that when Ham saw Noah's nakedness, that phraseology is an idiom, a polite way of saying something that would otherwise sound crass. And so, of course, I'm going to research to find out what I can find. So I didn't find it actually until I was taking the church a couple years back through the Old Testament. And when I got to the book of Leviticus, I found the answer to the idioms from the Genesis story. See, you have to remember, when the Hebrew people were released from Egypt, they had been in captivity for over 400 years. They were told what to do, when to do, and how to do it. So now they're loosed in the wilderness, millions. It would be mass carnage if God didn't lay down some ground rules for these people. So the Mosaic Law comes into play. And for those of you who are scared of the book of Leviticus, I encourage you, go into it realizing this is the boundaries for these people who have no clue how they're supposed to behave once they're loose. And there were so many rules that people were like, I ain't reading Leviticus. Well, if you miss Leviticus, you're going to miss the story. You're going to miss it completely. So the Mosaic Law can be broken into 3 sections. For teaching purposes, the Jews considered all 3 sections as of equal importance, but we Westerners, we break it into 3, and we teach the ceremonial laws, which have to do with the temple, the tabernacle, the festivals, the high priest, the Levitical priesthood, what animals you sacrifice, all that ceremonial laws. Then you have the civil laws, and those are like police matters. Then you have the moral laws, which is the heart of God, his righteous standard for morals and ethics that is written on our hearts, which we are still under today. So within these laws, he covers what is lawful and unlawful intercourse in the bedroom. So I'm going to read you 2 passages of scriptures that both explain the idioms for the Genesis story. Are we ready? Leviticus 20, it's important that we know this. Leviticus 20:17, King James Version. And if a man shall take his sister, his father's daughter or his mother's daughter, and see her nakedness, and she shall see his, it is a wicked thing, and they shall be cut off, which means killed, in the sight of their people. He hath uncovered her nakedness. So see and uncover, hand in hand. Now we're going to jump into the next scripture. Leviticus 18:6-9, New American Standard. None of you shall approach any blood relative of his to uncover nakedness. I am the Lord. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father. That is your mother. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. It is your father's nakedness. The nakedness of your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether born at home or born outside, their nakedness you shall not uncover. That's a lot of gobbledygook. What it is saying is, if you are married, say I'm married to Jim. I am Jim's nakedness. I'm his wife. I'm not somebody else's. I'm his. So what it is saying in this is what is lawful and what is unlawful. So technically, when I studied this story, and I dug into the Gesenius Hebrew Chaldee Lexicon of the Old Testament, which you can find if you look up this word, uncover. See and uncover, tied hand in hand. Uncover, Strong's H, 1540. The Hebrew word is galah, and it says, specially to uncover the nakedness of a woman, i.e. to have intercourse with her, Leviticus 18:8 and sequential verses, which is the one I read, and Leviticus 20:17, which is the other one I read. From the words of Leviticus 18:18, it is understood why to uncover the nakedness of a man is used for to have unlawful intercourse with his wife. Now, idioms, a polite way of saying something that would otherwise sound crass. I'm going to reread the story of Noah and Ham. You plug in the idioms. Genesis 9:21-25. He, Noah, drank the wine and became drunk and uncovered himself in his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father, the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both of their shoulders and walked backwards and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were turned away so that they did not see his father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son Ham had done to him, and he said, "Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants he shall be to his brothers." Many scholars believe what the lexicons teach, and they believe that Ham had unlawful intercourse with Noah's wife. Now, whether that was his biological mom or a stepmother, we don't know. But many scholars believe that the lexicon is saying this is an idiom. And when Noah woke up and he realized what Ham had done, he cursed the offspring, which would then become Ham's fourth child, conceived by unlawful intercourse, and he would end up being cursed and be the father of all the giants that caused all the mess in the first place. If those scholars are right, the giants can be traced back to what Ham did. If those scholars are wrong and the lexicons are wrong, and they just want to believe this story at face value, that Ham went in, saw dad drunk and nude, laughed, went out, told Shem and Japheth, they came in and covered up dad. If you want to believe that, whatever uncovering nakedness means to you, doesn't matter. It's all traced back to Ham. No matter how you slice it, Canaan was born and cursed, and he was Ham's son, and he's also the father of all the giants. So the real blame for Moses not getting to go into the promised land is Ham, because if he hadn't uncovered Noah's nakedness, Noah never would have cursed Canaan. Canaan may never have been born. The giants would not have been born, which the people, spies, then wouldn't have been scared and come back and brought a report to the people that filled them with so much fear that God had had enough and said, now you're going to die in the wilderness, which exasperated them to the point where they drove Moses crazy to where he whacked the rock. So this is all Ham's fault. And I bet when I asked you at the beginning of this teaching, who should Moses blame for not getting to go into the promised land? You didn't pick a guy that was born 1,000 years before he was, did ya? Nobody, Ham. Oh, it's definitely Ham. I can play this blame game all the way back to Eve, if you want me to. It'll take me a while, a lot of history. I could do it. We do this all the time. Eve is going to turn around and blame the serpent. Who made the serpent? God. So what's God to blame for all of this? It's a very dangerous game. And to the great lengths that I went through to blame Ham on Moses. But we do it all the time. Some of us are still blaming people from our childhood for where we are right now. Some of us are blaming people from a year ago why we stepped out of the ministry. Some of us are blaming COVID. I'm out. There's a lot of churches that aren't even opening back up. We have to understand that when we stand before the Lord, he doesn't want a bunch of excuses. He's already told us, you're going to be in for a fight. You're going to have trials. You're going to have temptations. You're going to have sorrows. But I have a reward for those people who endure to the end and who are called overcomers. And the only way that you can endure to the end is if you stay in the race. The only way that you can overcome is if you continue to fight. But we tap out because we come up against some person or some obstacle that just derails us. And then we blame them. And we justify our choices because of something that they did. Let me tell you, when you tap out, it doesn't get easier. The target doesn't go away. It gets lonelier. And when you put yourself on the fringe of your Christian brothers and sisters and isolate yourself to deal with the pain, you become an easier target for the enemy. So when you start backsliding to deal with your pain, isolate yourself, start drinking, partying, sleeping around, which is an idiom, politely say something that would otherwise sound crass. When you start doing these things, pulling away from the church, stop pursuing your relationship with the Lord because of something that happened to you, I'm telling you, you've already been hit. So my challenge to you is recognize what's happening for what it is. You're in a fight. He's trying to derail you. He's using whatever will work, and he knows where your buttons are. Recognize the trap and get back in the fight. So you need to surround yourself with Christian people, friends that'll challenge you, give you a swift kick in the pants when you need it, give you a hard word from the Bible when you need it. Stop surrounding yourself with people that are going to drag you down the path of death. Because I'm telling you, we only have a blip of time left before we spend eternity somewhere. And on the radar scope of eternity, this blip is tiny. So we need to do whatever we can to continue to further the kingdom and reach our destiny, which he has for us. Whatever that looks like for you, go for it. Get back in the fight. We need to encourage each other and stop playing the blame game. Amen? So I'm going to call the altar team to come up after I read a poem. And this poem that I wrote is called The Verdict. And if anybody needs prayer after I close, just feel free to just come up. It can be for anything. If you've never accepted the Lord as your personal Lord and Savior and you're in this audience today, I encourage you to come up and turn your life over to him. If you just need prayer for something, because I'm telling you, this has been a hard season. And some of you might just need prayer for that. Come forwards. Let somebody agree with you and pray. So here is my poem called The Verdict. I stood before the Lord, able to see with such clarity. There was a sea of glass beneath his glorious throne. Before me on the altar lay two peculiar things, but I knew the meaning of the colored stones. The high priest used the black one to render a verdict of guilt. The white one meant the servant would be set free. And as I stood there enveloped in love, I also felt my shame, and I wondered just what verdict would be rendered to me. My works came into vision in a millisecond of time in order to be tested by the fire. And all I could do is stand and watch as my sordid deeds were judged. Soon I realized the situation seemed quite dire. Child, what did you do with the talents you had to further the kingdom of God? It appears that most of your works have burned away. And as much as I wanted to defend myself, my soul knew the truth. And I knew there wasn't a thing that I could say. I lowered my eyes to the sea of glass to see what works were left, the ones that I would be rewarded for. The times I prayed for others and my selfless acts of love were just a few still shining on the floor. There were many reasons that hindered me from doing good works on earth. None of them seemed to matter at this time. The people who hurt me, the struggles I bore that robbed me of my days, no longer justified the choices that were mine. Now I knew the decision to put my faith in the one who was crucified would ultimately be my saving grace. But the white stone with my new name and the verdict of innocence didn't stop the tears that streaked my remorseful face. Why did I let the darkness get to me when I had the truth inside? Why didn't I just keep walking in the light? I couldn't help but wonder what else I could have done if I had just fought a harder fight. One day you too will see through the eyes of the one who died for you, and you're going to understand like never before. And then all those excuses and the people that you blamed for what you chose to do simply just won't matter anymore. What will your race look like when you cross the finish line, when you stand before his throne and talk to him? I hope it is exciting. And I hope you hear him say, "Well done, my faithful servant. Welcome in." Amen. Amen. Give the Lord a hand.